Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Here I am. Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Wednesday. It is July the 16th, and I appreciate you being along for the ride today. Welcome to the program. We're going to talk about a couple things, but the most important thing that is happening, at least that I keep seeing, is a PR nightmare. And the Trump administration is in it. And I guess they've forgotten the first rule of holes. Maybe the entire GOP has forgotten. The first rule of holes is when you're in a hole, you stop digging. If you don't want to be any deeper than you are, you got to stop at some point in time. You can't keep digging the hole. If you guys saw the thumbnail, if you're just listening, maybe you didn't see it, but if you saw the thumbnail, there's a great example of a PR nightmare when you have a chicken company and your job is to sell chicken. And your suppliers don't come up with chicken, and therefore you no longer have the ability to sell chicken. You have to do something about that. You have to. You can't just act like nothing happened. You got to admit that something happened wrong, messaging or otherwise. You got to own the blame. You got to suck it up and take it, and you got to tell people some version of the truth. Usually people are very forgiving when it comes to accepting culpability. What people do not like to do is have you say, it's your fault because your expectations of our chicken company was that we would have chicken. And that's a mistake. This is something that happened in the UK for Kentucky Fried Chicken, KFC. And so they did an entire marketing campaign all about transparency, honesty, accepting the blame. They're a chicken company. They're not the federal government of the United States. But they knew the rule of holes said, stop digging, start filling it in, give people what they want, which is they want to blame you for the thing that happened. And this is talking about a chicken company where you could actually walk down the road and get something else. What we're talking about is our federal government set something up. On the worst end of it, they're covering for pedophiles who hurt children. That's unbearable. On the best possibility of it, they lied about something for clout, for podcasts, for Fox News hits, and now they got to come clean. Either way, it's time to take your medicine. The American people are saying it. And now, of course, you've got the people on the political left that smell blood in the water and they are diving on top of it. So two things can be true at once. People on the right who want to hear about transparency and they expect the people that are quote unquote representing us to do the right thing. Those people can want something, and people on the left can want to just dunk on Donald Trump and his administration, including Pam Bondi and the FBI. And that can also have two people with very different motivations have co-aligned interest, and all of that can be used for good. And the good thing is transparency in government, not just things we like, it should be done. You should step forward and actually accept that when you're in the wrong, you just pick up that turd sandwich and you start eating it. In the military, they always tell you how to eat an elephant. You eat an elephant one bite at a time. That's what you're supposed to do. If you're being honest about it, this is a pretty serious elephant. It's been out there for years. Trump kind of knows that, and yet he still will not put down the shovel. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I've also got stories about stuff going on in the Justice Department. We're going to be talking about the defunding of various different federal entities. People can be upset about the big, beautiful bill. Two people for different reasons. Some people are really mad because it funds too many things. It's a massive omnibus bill, and it's now going to be carried out. And how does it work? There's also people on the left that are mad about it because it doesn't have enough government and it's cutting too much from the government. You can be mad because there's too much government. You can be mad because there's not enough government. You're both mad at the government. All right. So just because you align on the headline with someone doesn't mean that you align with the motivation. And that's why this sort of I don't know what it's called. They keep calling it panicins. I don't know who came up with the idea of panicins, but whoever that person is, I hope they're taken outside and shot in the kneecap with something low caliber so they feel it for a really long time. I despise it. Absolutely hate it. I think it's a really dumb thing to say because it is so simplistic. And what it assumes is Americans are too dumb to realize that people can have the same overlying result demand for different motivations. I think Americans are more sophisticated than that. I want to believe that. Please let me continue to believe that. Let's get started with my friends over at Patriot Protect. This is our first sponsor of the day. And if you guys are worried about scammers, if you're worried about people hacking, if you are worried about companies not taking good care of your data, which, by the way, is a virtual certainty. If the federal government can't take care of your data, and let's just be real, they cannot. I was part of the OPM hack of 2016. If they can't keep track of that, what are you going to expect from private companies? 184 million login credentials and passwords were just revealed from an AT&T breach. You got usernames, passwords, email addresses, unencrypted, wide open on the internet, accessible to people who know how to find them. Of course, there's always people trying to circulate data out on the dark web. They can sell your social security number, they can sell your address, your name, your birthday, etc. And by using that, they can either impersonate you or they can go and they can access the thing that you already have and steal your stuff. If you want to go ahead and take your name out of the pile so that you are not being sold, so that you know if somebody's out there trying to scam you, check out a company like Patriot Protect. It's the one that Mrs. Seraphin and I use. It's patriot-protect.com/KYLE. Again, patriot-protect.com/Kyle. Their goal is to remove you from the data broker websites that are incentivized to put your information out there and make you an easy target, an easy victim. Go out there and try and find my address. Go look for Kyle Seraphin. They should be scrubbing this stuff all the time. There are constantly people that are trying to put it back out there. There are constantly people that are trying to scrub it and pull it back down. The data broker websites benefit from your information. It's yours if you want to keep it private and keep it away from folks like criminals, scammers, hackers, government agents like me that are sitting out there in a car doing surveillance. Just saying, I used to use these things too. Check out Patriot Protect. Again, patriot-protect.com/KYLE. Link in the show description. Use my name to save yourself 15% on an annual subscription. It's like a couple bucks a month. The fire and forget solution, and you're done for the year. Check them out. All right, let's get into today's program and talk about the rules of holes. Apparently, the chat really likes that. The rule of holes. It's a thing. All right. So number one, we're going to talk about Pam Bondi and a booster. She's got some additional things. This actually doesn't seem like the wrong attitude. You know, you should be getting rid of people that have been hanging out in your department for too long. Again, I read you something that Aaron Stevenson shared with me. This is a Machiavellian principle, but this goes back to, you know, the origins of Western city-states and the way that you handle governments, particularly toppling governments or the switch of. Either you execute them or you exile them. You can't keep around people that are part of the old program in the new program if you want the new program to survive, especially during a leadership change. If you're going to have an executive change, if you're going to have a prince change, if you're going to have a president change, you have to make sure that the people that are sitting in their positions, that are molded in, embedded, and trying to subvert what you're trying to accomplish, if you are trying to do real change, that has to stop. Pam Bondi ousted a top ethics official. We'll read about that. That's, of course, the CBS headline. CBS says ousted the senior ethics attorney at the Justice Department who advised her and other officials on employee ethics. The latest firing amid a purge of department employees. I assure you, whatever purge they have, it is not enough. There's not enough of them. Joseph Tyrrell, who was the director of Departmental Ethics Office. The Departmental Ethics Office, the fact that we have to have a Departmental Ethics Office that advises you what's okay and what's not okay and how to do it, all of that is gross. I don't think I ever needed to refer to anybody. I just knew what was right and wrong. If you actually hire people with ethics, you don't need to have ethics attorneys out there trying to tell you what it is. And by the way, they get so deep in the weeds about stupidity, like, well, you can't take a $20 gift from this person because... Meanwhile, all kinds of scandalous stuff happens to the senior executives, and they never get actually looked at it. We'll talk about one of them, maybe Kash Patel accepting significant gifts during his time while he was at the National Security Council. It's the worst, finding out about people that you co-signed on and find out later on that they actually had been acting corruptly for a long time. Anyway, this guy was removed. The letter stated that his employment with the Justice Department is, quote, hereby terminated. You are removed from federal service effective immediately. More of this, please. All of it. I mean, honestly, I had a buddy that was that's in the bureau talking to me this morning, and he was like, yeah, one of my friends, like, you know, he's out of the FBI now, and he left for his own reasons, but he wants to come back in, and they won't hire him, and he's a good guy, and I went, hey man, wrong dude you're talking to on this. I want all of these agencies to be just shredded. I want so much less government you would have your head spin. I can oppose Trump's slow removal of federal service in the same way that CBS is crying that they have fired anyone. They want it bigger. I want it smaller. We're both unhappy with the result at the moment. This guy, Terrell, said, my public service is not over and my career as a federal civil servant is not finished. None of these people think of themselves as federal civil servants. I really hate this verbiage. Like somehow working for the government is a burden on you. It's a choice in America. It's kind of like saying it was a burden on you to go and serve in the military. Even the word serve kind of bothers me. You signed up voluntarily. Very few of you had the judge point at you and say it's jail or the Marine Corps. And if they did, even then, you still had a choice. So it was voluntary. That's kind of how our military works right now. To act like it's not your choice, to act like you're somehow serving or bearing a burden, that you are doing something that is for the good. It's for the good of you. The benefits are good. The job is very low requirements. Generally speaking, it's really hard to remove you. It's way more safe in an employment realm than it is to go into the private sector where you're actually going to be held accountable for a lot of results. The retirement and the pension are guaranteed by the faith and trust of the United States government, which actually prints the real money that goes out there. I mean, all of this stuff, it's a trade-off. It's a safety trade-off. I could have gone into private. I did work in the private service for most of my life. I worked in the public service when it seemed like it was serving the public. Yeah, but also serving myself. It was a means to an end. All of this stuff is this crafting of we're the good people. It's this moral argument the left makes. And it comes from their religious position that government actually grants good things and therefore you must have servants. Think about the language of religion in Christianity. I mean, just for a second. What does Jesus say to people when they've done the right thing? Well done, my good and faithful servant. Servant language is Christian in nature. And of course, you see that done with these people who oftentimes don't believe anything about it. Anyway, this guy says that he served his oath at the age of 18 as a midshipman. So he's a veteran. He supported and defended the Constitution and have taken the oath at least 5 more times. And the oath didn't come with the caveat that I need to only support the Constitution when it's easy. I mean, those are all the right words for sure. He began working at the Justice Ethics Department in 2018, became the director in 2023. He worked at the FBI for more than 10 years. He spent 2 decades in federal service, according to the Justice Department. Okay. So what? So you've had a job for a long time. That's what it really comes down to. They're crying in this article about people who are being pushed out, and they name them by name, and I'm not going to name them because they're not names that you're familiar with. But acting like it's a problem for you no longer to have a job in a place where it was. There's more to this story. He gave some advice that they found very troubling to Jack Smith and the Jack Smith investigation into Donald Trump, and authorized certain things that didn't make sense. And so after review, they were like, well, we can see where your loyalties lie. And you decided to go against what we think are ethical determinations. And so you're no longer required. Thanks for coming. Really appreciate that. I'm for it. That's a win. We can mark some wins. We don't have to only say you didn't do the right thing, and suggesting that any one person is simply a single action and that can be extrapolated. And you can say, because person did this thing, I hate them forever. They're the worst. It's like, no, there's no people that like that. Your neighbor can do something nice and you like it. And your neighbor can leave their sprinklers on and flood your lawn and leave you with a muddy mess. And you're like, damn it. Guy's terrible at turning off his sprinklers that one time. That was really frustrating. I'll remember that for a long time. Bondi getting rid of people at the DOJ is a good move. There are some good hires over there. Harmeet Dillon's a good hire. She made people run out. They've gotten rid of some of these folks. Good. All right. So try to cut fairly on these things as they come in. This is another one. This is kind of interesting. Yesterday, we covered that Ro Khanna tried to attach an amendment to this bill. This is being covered by ABC News right now. Just letting you know where the news is coming from, only because I check out ABC, NBC, MSNBC, what else? CBS, CNN, NPR. Those are my normal ones. And they all lean left. And the reason I want to lean left on all the news that I cover is mostly because I want to know what the left is saying, because I know that they have this narrative that they're pushing out there. Doesn't mean that the political right is not exempt from the narrative trap. I'm going to play you some of that in a minute, too. They're all just mouthpieces, it turns out. And the new media is the same as the old media, with small exceptions. There's a small number of voices you'll find. I'd like to continue myself in one of them because I don't take money from anybody else. And I actually don't care about making friends with these people. I kind of enjoy when they hate me. Is that weird? I kind of love it because I want to actually say things that are honest. And if that means that it pisses people off, good. Jocko Willink style, good. Let them be mad. This is an interesting situation here with the crypto legislation that's running through. That's called the Genius Act. which I hate the names of these bills. I almost always do. I might be in a mood today. But essentially, yesterday we played you some audio, at least an interview after the fact. Ro Khanna, California congressman, was trying to attach an Epstein transparency situation to a bill that had nothing to do with what it was about. The bill's about crypto, and he wanted to tally on the Epstein thing because he wanted to dunk on it. Now, you can make the argument that that was the only way he was going to get it on anything in a committee, and so he proposed an amendment. Okay, fine. There we go. But the fact of the matter, it was also very performative. And then they put it out to the wider floor, and Mike Johnson did what needs to be done, and so that was actually killed as well. This bill did not make it through, and people voted against it. And the issue apparently says, this is what Speaker Johnson says. By the way, I just realized something about Speaker Johnson. I think I have a picture of him. Hold on. See if we have a picture of him on the screen. Here we go. We're going to cover him in just a little bit because he's flip-flopped on the Epstein thing. But Mike Johnson, I want you to picture Mike Johnson's voice. I don't have a clip for you, but picture it. Mike Johnson is Smithers from The Simpsons. I got hit with that overwhelmingly this morning as I was preparing. He's Smithers. Smithers is the sniveling little guy that walks behind Mr. Burns. And Donald Trump is kind of the Mr. Burns. I don't think their voices are analogous there. But Smithers is like, whatever you say, sir. That sounds amazing. Everything you do is the best thing I've ever seen. I can't believe that you have this brilliant plan. It's so good. Mike Johnson was supposed to be going in there specifically to unseat Kevin McCarthy. His job was to replace Kevin McCarthy and give us single issue bills that were one thing, and it was a single issue appropriation. And since then, he's gone right back to exactly what you'd expect. They do 100% uniparty, omnibus bills where you cram all your crap in there, and you got to vote for it because some of your crap's in there, but somebody else's crap is as well. And what are you going to get? We can't do any better. I really dislike the sniveling nature of what you see from Mike Johnson and the fact that he's so flip-floppy. And that's exactly what Smithers does in The Simpsons. He just is a yes man that he's there because that's where the power is, but he doesn't actually have the ability to possess or wield the power himself. And he's only there in so much as this goes on. All right, the speaker explained that conservatives who voted against the rule want a crypto bill, the Clarity, the Genius, and the Anti-CBD Surveillance Act combined into one package rather than take each one as a standalone measure. The issue is passing the Genius bill does not have a prohibition against a central banking digital currency, and by authorizing one without a guarantee of getting the others, you have a problem. MTG came out and said just as much. So just so you guys understand, I'll read the article just a little bit, but this was and this is kind of a not favorable, this is ABC. But this was the issue that they said, is that by putting one bill in and not the other, you lose the protections that they wanted to make sure that we're married together. I sort of get that. I also sort of don't really get excited about crypto either way. I think people who put money into crypto you're gambling at a casino table where you don't know how all the players are aligned. When I was explaining this to my buddy Ryan Matta, who is constantly telling me that crypto is the way, and yeah, maybe you can make small gains there, but you're basically playing at a casino table where you don't know how all the actors are operating in the background and how many of them are hyping something that on the other end they're selling. You might be able to expose them at some point in time, but not before you lose everything you have. So if you guys want to play crypto games, if you guys want to play with your money, if you want to sit on a casino table where maybe a third of the table is also playing on behalf of the house and the house already has a benefit, yikes, I don't want that at all. And I know some of you guys will vehemently disagree with me, but unless you have enough crypto money that you don't ever have to work again and you're not going to convert it into dollars and you could spend crypto, I don't think it makes any sense, at least not right now. Do what you do. All right. After an earlier setback in the Trump administration, House Republicans failed to advance a key procedural vote on a package of legislation, including 3 crypto measures that we just named earlier. President Trump said Tuesday that he made a deal with the Republicans in Congress to advance the legislation on Wednesday. That's today, so we'll see what that does. In his post on Truth Social, he met in the Oval Office with 11 of the 12 GOP members needed to pass the package. After a short discussion, we all agreed to vote tomorrow morning in favor of the rule. Speaker Mike Johnson was at the meeting, and he was doing this. Yeah, that's brilliant, sir. That's brilliant. Yeah, it's a great job, sir. Everything you do is great. I'm going to have to get my Smithers voice down. He didn't provide specific details about the deal. In a lengthy statement, Johnson thanked Donald Trump for helping lock down the necessary votes to advance the crypto legislation because that's what Mike Johnson does. I'm thankful for the president. I'm thankful for the president getting involved tonight to ensure that we can pass the Genius Act tomorrow and agreeing to help us in advancing additional crypto legislation in the coming days. I find it boring, but necessary to talk about when the media is covering one thing like a loss, and in fact, there may be some principled stands on it. Just be aware, It's out there. There's a spin. We'll see what happens today. We can talk about it tomorrow as well. It goes along with some of the other stuff that they're trying to cover down on, like this one. This is my favorite. Whenever I see the media crying about something, it makes me think there's probably something else going on. This is another CBS story. This is about spending. This is coming out of the big, beautiful bill. And there's also an NPR story, which I sent to one of my buddies who works on an Indian reservation. We had a kind of a chuckle about it. The Senate has advanced Donald Trump's request to cancel billions of dollars, which we all thought we were going to get. I thought this was the Doge sort of thing. They're canceling foreign aid, NPR, and PBS. Now you think, why are those related? For me, those are immediately related because foreign aid seems to either aid in propaganda or like run programs that are counter to American interest. NPR is also a propaganda program that is counter to American interest. And the same thing with PBS. So that makes perfect sense to me. It's always interesting, though, when you see the mainstream media crying about the government not subsidizing what would be their competition. What was the... I'm trying to remember what there was an analogy. It's like these people, like they're not exactly competing against each other, are they? Because they're actually trying to activate it and push a single narrative together. There's a movie that quote somewhere in my head right now that's kind of like rumbling around. It's like you don't see these people attacking each other in the same way. They don't. They kind of work in this like semi-cooperative thing. Like you don't see the piranhas generally like swarming and knocking out other piranhas. If one of them gets injured, maybe they'll go after it. But they all kind of go after the prey animal. The prey in this case is our attention span and our sympathies and maybe the way that we think. The Senate narrowly advanced a request from the White House to claw back billions in funding from international aid and public broadcasting, facing a congressional Friday deadline. No particular reason why. They make these deadlines out of thin air. They could work longer, but they don't. The request, known as a rescissions package, has cleared the first procedural hurdle on Tuesday with the help of J.D. Vance's vote. He cast the tie-breaking vote after 3 Republicans joined the all-Democrat thing in opposing it. Again, you can oppose things for different reasons, but they'll always smear you as being part of the same thing. This is just kind of a little interesting piece. The White House requested that Congress cancel $9.4 billion in funding that was previously approved to spend starting the clock on a process that gives lawmakers 45 days to act. So here you go. And then this is the story NPR had to cover on exactly the same thing. And this is my absolute favorite. If you listen to NPR, which I spent numerous times doing, and I have friends that actually still listen to it specifically for the humor aspect. If you believed in NPR's view of the world, just based on the percentage of news coverage, at least 60% of the world, from Kenya to Tanzania to Madagascar to parts of China, all the way to the United States and everywhere in between, NPR would have you believe that 60% of the world are on the LGBTQ protected spectrum. And also that there are tens of millions of American Indians, which they call Native Americans, that are constantly dealing with problems that are our fault and we owe them. This story is one of those great stories. This actually comes from NBC, but it's talking about NPR. Native American radio stations are at risk as Congress looks to pull back $1 billion in public broadcasting funding. Now, why would NBC, why would any news organization particularly care about this? It's because they want more government at all times, and they advocate as such. The person that you see on the screen there, sort of heavy-set, maybe Indian, but possibly Hispanic-looking woman, sitting at a control screen with a microphone. Hey, I've got that microphone. I've got that same shock mount, too. How about that? If Kyle Seraphin can sit in this little house in Texas, America, and afford to buy my own microphone, and I've got a similarly capable soundboard, and I've probably got more capable computers, if I can fund it out of my pocket, I bet you they can, too. In any case, that is Jacqueline Saley. She is the president for the Kohonik Broadcast Corporation at the KNBA radio stations in Anchorage, Alaska. Dozens of Native American radio stations, also known as American Indian radio stations, because we're all Native American, aren't we? Across the country are vital to tribal communities, and they'll be at risk of going off the air if Congress cuts more than $1 billion from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, says the industry leaders. The United States Senate is set to vote on whether or not to approve the Department of Government Efficiency's plan to rescind previously approved public broadcasting funding for 2026 and 2027. The radio stations will go dark. Oh, no. So they can't actually survive on ad dollars. They can't actually survive on the model that radio survives on in every market. Look, I sat in a radio station that my dad was working at in Payson, Arizona. It's a tiny little broadcasting studio in a tiny little town with less than 20,000 people who live in it. And they managed to stay open without governmental money. How could that be that you can't survive in Anchorage, Alaska, which is a thriving metropolis in Alaska? Maybe it's because they are trying to put out a very particular narrative that favors certain things. It doesn't make sense. And of course, the idea is that these poor Indians who the American government has to coddle and take on forever. I have a lot of strong feelings about Indian reservations, folks. Having worked on them, they're dysfunctional. The people that live there are living a dysfunctional life. And I'm not saying they're bad people because of that. I'm saying that their outcomes are obviously bad because the government is involved. It looks the same. In fact, we talked about this with Tim Kennedy the other day. It looks the same as what you see in inner city Baltimore. In West Baltimore, it is a catastrophically bad scenario. Places that look like Beirut in the 80s. You drive through it and there's buildings that look like they've been bombed out. There's no maintenance. There's nothing going on. The streetlights are all strobing at weird hour. Like they strobe because the light bulbs are out. You've got all these different police notifications. There's these lights that strobe on, letting you know that the police are actually videoing and monitoring. So people slink around in the darkness and the shadows. It's scary as hell. It looks like a zombie apocalypse ran through an American city and we lost to the zombies. That's what Baltimore looks like to me when I've gone through it. Indian reservations are like that, but like with less urban stuff. They're just houses with 3 walls and a piece of the roof missing, and people are still living in it. It's a guy sitting in the side of a school bus with the front of it torn off, and he's got a fire going, and he's burning something to stay warm because it's 20 degrees below zero, and he lives in a school bus that doesn't even have a front. Like, that's not okay. That's not, and that's directly related to they have enough to survive, but not enough to thrive. And so you have the worst scenario. You have people that are basically living like cattle. One of the great stories is somebody built a brand new series of houses on one of the Indian reservations we were dealing with. And when an agent went out to go question him, there was a huge hole in the bathroom, in the wall, like a brand new house. It was like 2 years old. And the guy had apparently taken a chainsaw and cut a huge hole because there was no window in the bathroom, cut a huge hole and was like, well, why did you do that? And he was like, well, I didn't have a warmer to keep my horse trough thawed during the winter. So the horse couldn't have water. It just had ice. So I just cut a hole in the house so that it could drink out of the bathtub and froze the house. It's not all there. That comes from government money because it's not a house that he bought. It was just given to him. The tribe gave it to him. There's a lot of really, really dumb usages. And if it means that we have to claw back $1 billion and we don't have Indian radio stations anymore, like, good. Figure out a payment model or don't. There's a million podcasts out there and people figure out how to get information. And to act like this is the claim in this, local radio stations play an outside role in the lives of many in the indigenous communities. Yeah, sure they do. Where cable television and broadband internet access are spotty at best and non-existent for many. And yet all of them still have cell phones, they all have Wi-Fi, and they're all able to be on Facebook Messenger even though they have no minutes for their phones. How do you know that? Because I've been on Indian reservations, because I've gone and knocked on doors that these people who wrote the story have never done. This is coming from the Associated Press. I'm just telling you, my sympathy for these situations is that it's probably like, I don't know, 25% government getting in there and making these people dependent, and 75% people who don't want to rely on their own ability to survive. The people that live good lives that are American Indians left the reservation. They left the plantation of government service. I feel really strongly about how bad the plight of it is, but a lot of it is because people just don't have any sensibilities to just get up and leave from the place. It reminds me of that, what is it, Sam Kinison? I think that's his name. He's a comedian. He's like, we've been bringing food to people who live in the desert that are starving in Africa. Like, why doesn't someone go in there and tell them, just bring a bunch of moving trucks. We're going to take you to where the food is. There's no food here. You live in the damn desert. It seems so sensible. But I guess if you have no survival instincts, and there's a lot of that in this country, in urban areas, in some of these rural communities, so the government has to go and give you a radio station where like 3 people work. It's crazy. It's so crazy. Okay. You know what's not crazy? A simple capitalist model where you say, I would like this product, and the people that make it make a good one, so I'm going to give them my money. That's the kind of the thing. That's the opposite of a government funding your radio station. If you guys want to fund one of our sponsors, you could do so by checking out my buddies over at Patriot Coolers. You guys have been hearing about them for years from me, literally years, as long as we've been on the podcast situation. That's what we've had as a sponsor. So thank you to Patriot Coolers. And the reason is because they make a great product. I've got probably, I don't know, a dozen, maybe 2 dozen of their things. I've got their hard tumbler sitting here. This is a coffee mug. It's got a great cup handle. It says Patriot on there, which is cool. The lids are great. They're spill proof. This one's full of coffee. I will pour it out here on my desk, except it doesn't pour. Leak proof and good. It doesn't survive like a 10-foot fall if you have kids and you decide to throw it off like the top of, I don't know, playground. But otherwise, they are highly durable products that will last you a long time. You buy them once and then carry them with you wherever you go. I do whenever I travel. PatriotCoolers.com. Promo code Kyle saves you 10% as usual. They've got hard coolers, which we use when we do anything when it comes to grocery shopping. They've got soft coolers you can use as a lunchbox. They got backpack coolers. They've got some hats and stuff as well. So check them out. They also help fund American veterans with mobility issues. So they give money back. Everything about this company is a good company, and they're good people, and they're an American family success story, you know, like doing the thing that people do. They don't have to beg for government dollars just to get through. Worth knowing. All right, I'm done bagging on Indian reservations, but seriously, if you spend any time on one, it's really, really hard. It's like my buddy would always send me this meme. It's a picture of like some, you know, idealized Indian brave, and he's got a tear running down his face, and it just says, "Once a proud people." Seriously, once a proud people, but not today anymore. All right, we're getting into the sort of the minutia and the nitty gritty of this situation. Roughly 6 in 10 Americans oppose Trump's mega bill. This is a CNN poll. I want to play some other polling too, because the Epstein thing is another situation where people may disagree for different reasons. We're going to get into media narrative and why that is as in the second half here. Roughly 6 in 10 Americans say they oppose the GOP domestic policy bill. I guarantee you they didn't read it. I guarantee you they don't even know what's in it, because I don't know all the stuff that's in there, and neither do you. But anyway, they oppose it. Sure, 60%. In the wake of the sweeping legislation achievement, his biggest since returning into office, Trump's rating for handling the budget has slumped 11 points since March, with a rising majority saying he's gone too far in gutting government programs. Really? And this is why we're screwed as a country. This is why yesterday's show is, what if we already lost the war? If 60% of Americans, or a big chunk of that 60%, are upset with Trump's mega bill because it doesn't fund enough government, we're effed as a people. We're so screwed. I ran a survey. There's over 2,000 respondents so far over on X. And the question was really simple. It's like, okay, have you considered your political elites, and do you think that they should fly in a Gulfstream 550? Should they fly in a Gulfstream 700 global class or a Bombardier Global 7500? Should they fly in a $60 million aircraft, an $85 million aircraft? Should they fly first class commercial, or should they fly coach? And most of you said they should ride on the top of the damn bus. They shouldn't even get a seat in it. Most of you said that they should ride coach if you got a vote on there. It's really straightforward. If you don't want your political elites to act like they're political elites, let them fly like you do. And if they want to pay for the upgrade to first class, great. And if they can afford it out of their pocket, or someone wants to lend them a private jet, fantastic. If they're that kind of wealthy, awesome, do it. Great. That's not what we have right now. There's a current situation brewing where I've had FBI agents and whistleblowers reaching out to me in the last 48 hours, telling me that Kash Patel is about to buy an $80 million or more jet, may have already actually secured the funding and bought it, because he wants to have the same kind of jet that his billionaire buddies have. By the way, the current FBI jet was actually something that a billionaire used to own. Robert Kraft is the alleged previous owner of the current FBI jet that Chris Wray was running around in. It's problematic. We can all say that there's that people agree, like, have the same thoughts and not have the same feelings about why those come down. And you're starting to see a little bit of a break from the political left. I'm going to give you a media narratives thing. Here's the reason why the Epstein case is still relevant and why we're going to keep talking about it, why it's such a failure. Enjoy this real quick. This is CNN running to their polling, not just polling on the mega bill, but polling on the Epstein situation. Again, we can agree with people that something should be done for different reasons and motivations. I'm sure that's why this number, you don't get American consensus unless people from differing points of views come together with different motivations for the same result. That's what that looks like in this poll.
Let's go now to CNN chief data analyst Harry Enton. And Harry Enton, there's a new CNN poll that's just out. How's the controversy impacting the president's support?
Yeah, I would say that the word is dissatisfied. That is how Americans feel in terms of the releases so far of the Epstein case. Take a look here. Epstein case, amount of info released. The winner here, 50% dissatisfied. Doesn't matter, 29%, not heard enough, 17%. But look at the bottom of your screen. The percentage that are satisfied is just 3%. That's 1, that's 2, that is just 3%. I feel like the count on Sesame Street. Just 3% of Americans are satisfied so far with the amount of information released. The clear winner in this particular case is 50%. Half of the public is dissatisfied, at least so far.
And are you seeing a big difference between how Republicans and Democrats are viewing this?
No, and that I think is kind of the interesting sort of nugget in what's going on here. You see this 50% dissatisfied, and let's break it down by party. Okay, Epstein case, amount of info released. Look at this. You get 43% of lean GOP, that's Republicans and independents who lean towards the Republican Party, who are dissatisfied. Look at this. Just 4% satisfied? My goodness gracious. When you only have 4% that is with Donald Trump on a particular issue, that is ridiculously low. I've never seen anything quite like it. How about lean Democrat? 60% dissatisfied. Compare that to 3% who are satisfied. Again, 4%, 3% Republican, Democrat. You rarely ever see this type of agreement. Now, of course, there's another divide in American politics, one that has increased over the past few decades, and that is whites with a college degree, whites without a college degree. But in this particular case, we see agreement. What are we talking about? This Epstein case, amount of info released, dissatisfied, 55% of white college graduates and 53% of white non-college graduates, Donald Trump's historic base, yet the majority are dissatisfied.
Okay, straightforward, really simple. You can agree with people on what you want the outcomes to be with having different motivations. Yes, I heard him say the word nugget. I'm not going to just sit in there, but that is a big nugget. That was a big nugget. Look, here's the story that NBC has run, and I think it's fair. Trump, who once fueled conspiracy theories about Jeffrey Epstein, now bears their brunt. President Donald Trump's recent statements and his administration handling of the records related to Jeffrey Epstein seems to have escalated anger from parts of his base. Of course it has, because there's only two possibilities on the far ends of it. Possibility one is they're covering for pedophiles. Worst case scenario. Nobody's okay with that. Not people on the left, not people on the right. Well, that's actually not true. They used to be okay with it, but now they're upset about it because it goes after Donald Trump. Possibility number two, maybe the most possible one, maybe the most reasonable possibility is Pam Bondi hyped it, said things, and overpromised and underdelivered. Kind of like having a chicken restaurant when you show up and there's no chicken. It's like, well, we don't have any chicken. And rather than say like, I'm not going to talk about it, rather than close the doors, turn off the lights, and have the employees hide behind the counter, which is what's happening, because I'm going to show you Bondi. She's going to refuse to talk about it. You've created a problem. You got to own it. Put down the shovel. First rule of holes. Second option is you need to start talking about it and explain it to the extent that the base needs to hear. You guys, I saw you in the chat. You're asking me about Donald Trump's statement. Let's just read it. Donald Trump released a statement at 8:43 my time. That's 9:43 Eastern time. Today, he said the radical left Democrats have hit pay dirt again, just like the fake and discredited Steele dossier. It's not related to that. The lying 51 intelligence agents, the laptop from hell. The Democrats swore that it came from Russia, blah, 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 Russia, Russia, Russia. I'm going to actually play you. He said something like this yesterday, so we'll play you a little of audio of this. They're no good at governing. They're no good at policy. They're no good at picking winning candidates. And unlike Republicans, they stick together like glue. This is their new scam that we will forever call the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. First rule of holes, put down the shovel. Come on. They haven't learned their lesson, and they probably never will be. They'll be conned by the lunatic left for 8 years. I've had more success in the last 6 months than any president in the country's history. You are missing it, buddy. You are missing it. Still prodding along with the fake news and the success for Democrats and the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. So he's going to try to brand it the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. All right. Well, that's what he's going to try to do. Here he is. Look at Carolyn Leavitt's face. The White House spokesperson is more savvy, more connected and knows what's going on in the media world, the social media world, and what people at large are saying. Carolyn Leavitt does not want to she just wants to deal with this and face it head on. I can pretty much tell she looks very uncomfortable in this clip. And here's Trump. This is the precursor to the Jeffrey Epstein hoax tweet or truth he just put out. This is a terrible, terrible decision on his part. I don't know who's advising him, but they do not have his best interest. Here it is.
No, she's given us just a very quick briefing. And in terms of the credibility of the different things that they've seen, and I would say that, these files were made up by Comey, they were made up by Obama, they were made up by the Biden we went through years of that with the Russia hoax, with all of the different things that we had to go through. We've gone through years of it, but she's handled it very well, and it's going to be up to her. Whatever she thinks is credible, she should release, yeah.
Okay. And what did she have to say about that? This is Bondi. She did a press conference yesterday, and she came out and was asked questions about Dan Bongino, and is he still working there, and are they now in like a fight, and some other stuff. And so her answer was basically, I'm going to just try to hide behind the counter and turn the lights off.
Yes, sir.
Is there disruption at the leadership of DOJ and the FBI with your relationship with Dan Bongino that is affecting the operations of the DOJ?
No, I'm not going to talk about personnel matters. No, I was with Director Patel all morning, and we are committed to keeping America safe, making America safe, working with our incredible partners at DEA, FBI, ATF, U.S. Marshals to do everything we can to make America safe, and that's what we're focused on. And today, we're focused on protecting our kids. And I would ask all of you, when you leave, go look at that wall outside, right outside this room, of all the fentanyl deaths, all the faces of fentanyl that you have done an amazing job putting up.
I'm going to distract, and I'm going to try to motivate you to look at something else. Will you please look at fentanyl, because that's something where we think we can make a difference and the messaging is better. What we're going to do is say we're going to protect kids. In the meantime, there's this belief, because of things she said, hundreds of victims, her words, 250 victims are not going to be protected because they drum this up. This is a problem of their own making. This is either a conspiracy theory or this is the real deal. But either way, the best case scenario is that your government lied to you. Your government, the one that you wanted, the one that we all thought was going to make a difference. That is not an answer. And notice when people want to run out the clock, they give you a long list of things. They list things. The ATF, the U.S. Marshals, the DEA, the FBI. Have we run out enough time here? I need to make sure this lasts about 30 to 45 seconds so that it does make for a good social media little clip roll. And I have done it. That's not to say people on the other side are honest or that they're operating honestly. They're running narrative. And I'm going to show you what narrative looks like really, really quickly. You don't need the examples, but you might as well have an example of this. This is The View. This is the leftist version of the non-thinking crowd that wants to be spoon-fed propaganda. And apparently they don't care that the internet exists. They don't care that people can research what they said 1 year ago. This is not ancient history. This is recent history. 2024, Sunny Hoskin versus 2025. I guess people listen to her because she's the prettier one on the show. She says some really dumb stuff. Here is her talking about first time the Epstein stuff is when they were worried about it, like basically exposing Democrats. Now seeing that Donald Trump is pivoting, anything to oppose Donald Trump is where they're at. That's not the same as Kyle Seraphin. That's not the same as many of you. We want our government not to lie to us. She has different interests, but we now sound the same. Just beware of that.
People were dying for this information. There was some sort of list that everybody thought was going to come out, and who's on the list. What's important for us to note is we shouldn't be repeating names that are on the list, because just because your name has not on the list, but in the documents, just because your name is on the documents doesn't mean that you have done anything criminally irresponsible or illegal or civilly irresponsible.
Or that you were a client.
Or that you were a client. These documents, as I read them, only reflect Epstein's sexual assaults of women and his sexual behavior. So I think that...
And Elaine?
and Ghislaine. And so being named in this suit does not equate to being accused of wrongdoing. And I think that is extremely important because conspiracy theorists seem to not understand or enjoy facts.
Yes.
These are the facts.
There is a list. Trump's name is on the logs, the passenger logs of Epstein's aircraft at least 7 times. That's already been made public. I mean, of course, Trump is denying any and all allegations, but all of that information is out there. Why not just put it to rest and say, release the list?
Okay. Now that it might hurt Donald Trump, we want to talk about it. When there's a Democrat in power and Democrats might be on the list, we got to hide it. And those people that are on the list didn't necessarily do anything wrong. But if Donald Trump's name's on the list, he's definitely doing something wrong. It's not just the left. Everybody is retarded. This is Bill O'Reilly trying to make like the weirdest possible arguments without facts. Remember, facts are totally irrelevant if you're trying to spin narrative. What you want people to do is just hear things over and over again. It was brought up the other day in an X space, and I smirked to myself. There was a discussion of the illusory truth effect. Do you guys recall that we used to do all these psychological tactics that are dropped on you? The illusory truth effect means the more you hear something, the more likely you are to establish that it's true in your head. And narrative response gets punched into your head over and over again, even though it's not actually accurate. You believe it is because it's been said by various different sources. You've heard it audibly. Maybe you see it in writing. The more you read it and you see it, you believe that this thing that is not true is in fact true because it has been presented to you by a source that you ingest. Simply knowing that it's a lie and still reading it, you may remember it later as true. The illusory truth effect. Here's Bill O'Reilly trying to remember what the narrative is, trying to run cover, and he can't get his timeline straight. Yet another reason that sometimes when you're a senior citizen, it is a good time to retire. How desperate for attention is Bill O'Reilly that he's sitting here and he's going to get fact-checked live on air like a complete fool. Listen to this. And didn't he get kicked out for like having sexually inappropriate everything? Wasn't that sort of why he doesn't? Anyway.
Right. Because Epstein was convicted during the Biden administration. Not one time did Hakeem Jeffrey call for any exposition of what the Biden Justice Department knew. He doesn't care about the truth. He doesn't care about the people.
Hold on. Bill.
This is what
hold on.
he does.
Hold on. Bill, hold on. You said Epstein was convicted during the Biden administration. Epstein committed during the Trump administration.
Yeah, so am I wrong on that?
He was arrested in 2019, and he committed in 2019. He died August 10th of 2019.
Right, he was never convicted.
So the Biden administration was not involved in a conviction or a trial of him. They were in of Elaine Maxwell.
Okay. But he was arrested and indicted under Merrick Garland.
No, under Trump.
Who had all of the information.
Epstein was arrested, indicted under Trump. In 2019, Trump was president. Merrick Garland was not the Attorney General.
Just sad tuba. Look at him. He's just confused. But
Okay.
I actually don't know what I'm talking about. I'm spinning a narrative. Can the narrative go to any side? Could anybody be doing narrative cover? Yeah. One of my buddies was making a statement, and we're not overtly anti or pro Jew or Israel in our little group chats. I kind of just don't care. Like, I think it's nauseating. But the number of people who are trying to fight against the Epstein situation and want it to be put away, and are also diehard Israel supporters. Like, if you were to take those two sort of graphs, they are one circle. There's no Venn diagram. There's no seepage outside of it. So you've got Ben Shapiro, who 100% thinks Israel, above all things, is important. I get it. Like, he's got family there, right? He's tied to it. Fine. That's your interest. Don't try to act like it's my interest. I don't care. I don't care at all, one way or another. It's like, do whatever they want. Not my business, it turns out. What was the thing we said here on the show the other day? People who don't eat bacon are not my people. Sorry if you don't eat bacon. You're not my people. Here's Ben Shapiro talking about things. He's also got government sources. I tapped government sources this morning. I bet you my sources know more than he does. He makes an argument, and I want you to listen for it. It sounds completely ridiculous. This is the man who used to say facts don't care about your feelings. Let me introduce to you a fact. Child sexual material. Is he alleging that the Epstein tens of thousands of hours we were told about the abuse of children are children abusing other children, that are children abusing themselves, that they are just photographed in states of undress or videoed in that, but they don't actually have anybody abusing them, or that person is all Jeffrey Epstein? What in the hell is he trying to say here with this argument? Because when you listen to it, you go, I don't believe you. I don't believe what you're saying. This is bad spin. It's Bill O'Reilly bad spin from someone who's very bright. You don't have to like Ben Shapiro, but I know he's smart because I've listened to him speak. And to be able to speak at that speed and articulate a message is a gift. You have a gifted cerebellum. Watch him talk and not make sense. That makes me uncomfortable.
Thousands of hours of tape. There are, by the way, but they are child pornography. The reason the FBI is not releasing them is because those tapes do not include underage people with third parties on Epstein Island. That is not what the tapes are. Okay? I also have sources in the federal government who are covering this stuff and have seen the documents. Okay, those tapes are just child porn. That's all. That's what they are. That's why the FBI is not releasing them. Okay, as far as the Epstein list, what I have been told by my sources is that there is no Epstein list. That basically there's a black book of Jeffrey Epstein contacts. And the vast majority of those contacts are already out there publicly. That's why you know names like Prince Andrew or Alan Dershowitz or some of the names that have been mentioned here. Those contacts, there is no evidence, according to the DOJ and the FBI, and again, that's public. There's no evidence that any of those third parties were having girls trafficked to them. Here is Tucker then asserting that it was actually Mossad. Again, without evidence, that not a shock. Of course, this is where Tucker was going.
That's not an of course. There's a lot of smoke there. There are contacts that, like when his madam has a father that was clearly tied in with some sort of Israeli operations, was given awards by Israel for his support of them. His funeral was attended by Israeli intelligence officers and a prime minister and so on. When you start looking at the people there, when you start looking at Jeffrey Epstein and the fact that he is he's associated with, that he was the sole money manager for Les Wessner, who was a very, very wealthy man, who also spent a bunch of money supporting Israel with the private foundation, the Wexner Foundation. That doesn't mean that you're an intel operative, but when you have unexplained sources of wealth, you've done things that nobody else gets in a business that's pretty well established. Like if you're going to be a money manager, you usually make money on commissions based on performance. You don't get flat fees. That's not normal. You don't see someone go from being a school teacher to being a billionaire. It could happen. America's a great place, but people have questions about it, especially when America's number one frenemy is involved. There are, of course, intelligence and counterintelligence investigations into people that are Israeli and people that are working on behalf of Israel. So don't tell me that. Don't tell me Ben Shapiro. Don't dismiss my concerns. You don't get to do that. You don't have the evidence that says otherwise. I can be asking these questions, and it gets more and more suspicious when Donald Trump tells his supporters, don't waste your time in the Epstein files. And this is an NPR episode, an NPR article saying very similar things. When I'm telling you that all of this media operation, it seems really, really bad. It seems poorly laid out. It seems like it's a really bad op, not being done well. And they're all violating rule number one, which is put down the damn shovel. You can't not talk about it anymore. That time has passed. When I was talking to Alex Jones the other day, we both agreed that if you were doing this right and you really wanted to sell one on the American people, you would just keep them waiting in perpetuity and you would never say anything. You wouldn't drop a memo on a Sunday afternoon to an adversarial / intel mouthpiece like Axios and have them tell you that it's all over and there's no co-conspirators and no one's going to be indicted and there's no blackmail material and everything we've told you is nothing. And by the way, we're never going to address it again. And we're not going to hold a press conference and we're not going to make anything available to people. We're just going to sit here and act like you're the crazy people. It's irrelevant. It's the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. That's what we're going to call it from here on out. The hoax of Epstein. The man won't die. And then all the Q people are like, oh, he's still alive. Like, oh my God, Trump said he won't die because he's still alive. Stop, people. They just made a terrible, bad, awful decision. You know, you can do that. You can make really, really bad decisions when you're a little bit more addled than you used to be. Donald Trump is not as fast or as swift as he was at one point in time. You want some evidence? We kind of love this. It's kind of funny if he's not in the middle of a big scandal. You get a kick out of his weird asides where he's like, let me just tell you about something that I want to tell you about. My uncle was friends with the Unabomber. And you're like, wait, what? And he's like, yeah, he said he was a brilliant. The line between brilliant and madman is very, very gray. And you're like, oh, that's weird. That's a funny thing to say. Maybe not in the middle of a scandal where people are trying to ask you why you're either covering up for pedophilia or your government is just lying to people for years and then they come forward and don't give you the truth. This is not the best Trump in this moment. This is a funny Trump in a regular moment. It's a bad look now. It makes it look like he doesn't have a grasp on what's happening.
Permits, and I have to brag just for a second, because when I first heard about AI, it's not my thing. Although my uncle was at MIT, one of the great professors, 51 years, whatever. He was the longest serving professor in the history of MIT, 3 degrees in nuclear, chemical, and math. That's a smart man. Kaczynski was one of his students. Do you know who Kaczynski was? There's very little difference between a madman and a genius. But Kaczynski, I said, what kind of a student was he, Uncle John, Dr. John Trump? He said, what kind of a student? And he said, seriously good. He said he'd go around correcting everybody, but it didn't work out too well for him. Didn't work out too well, but it's interesting in life. But I will.
Like, I'm just doing a weird Unabomber discussion in the middle of a talk about AI at an energy summit. Like, just saying crazy stuff. Like, that's not great. That's not a great move. Hone in on the thing. He should be limiting it. Now you got Mike Johnson breaking away. Smithers, the S-man, is doing some version of confusion here. He's also putting out his own little spin on this thing, which is dumb. Johnson says Bondi needs to come forward and explain the handling of the Epstein files. They're talking about how Congress is going to do this thing. No. The buck stops with the top. You just heard what Donald Trump said over on Truth Social. He's put his piece out, and his piece out is, this is a hoax. Well, you're going to have to explain that. You can't just drop it and leave it. And by the way, Congress doesn't have the ability to mandate that the executive give up executive files that are covered under either executive privilege, or they're covered under national security implications, or they're covered under criminal work. They don't have to give it up, because the Congress can't demand that the president give up information that Congress doesn't have access to. They don't run it. So this is a problem. And it's a problem that's not going away. Again, you can repeat a narrative, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're being honest. And again, this illusory truth thing continues to remind me that repeating it over and over again sometimes doesn't work, because it's really transparent. We're seeing it in real time. People are more tuned to media ops or information ops. And let me be real clear when we say things like PSYOP, right? A psychological operation. What is a PSYOP? What is the purpose of the PSYOP? A PSYOP, a psychological operation, is meant to make you behave or believe or act a certain way, and it's the way that they choose. A one-dimensional one is, I come and tell you, hey, this guy's a jerk. And when you see him and he says something kind of quickly, you're like, oh yeah, well, Kyle already told me he was a jerk. You're primed to believe one thing, okay? Or I tell you over a period of years, like I used to tell my friends that my roommates in college were in a cult. I'd say, they're in a cult, but they're really, really nice people. They're in a cult, but they're really, really nice people. I would say it over and over again, and people would always kind of that was just a thing. And then they would meet my roommates who are really, really nice people, but they were in a cult. And so they would have like a pentagram in their room, or they'd have like a skull that had like a candle out of it. Some other weird shit that they would just do. And people would meet them and they'd be like, oh, and then they would always have a soft reaction. They'd be like, they're really nice people. Like, I don't know why you keep saying they're in a cult. Well, they just have some interesting chase and decor. I set people up to believe a cult means one thing. They're really nice people. They focus in on the nice people because I wanted to soften the blow of what weirdos they were, because they were weirdos. They would go out in the forest and bury pieces of copper and like other weird stuff. Like, they thought they could astral project. They would sit and stare at candles all night, like strange stuff. But they're nice people. You can do a PSYOP that way. So you can set people expectations. You can guide people. You can move things around. What you can't do, though, is try to gaslight us after we're already aware that the operation is happening. And so this is an information op, a media op, a PSYOP, call it like every information op means I'm giving you information. If I have a motivation in giving it to you, that is a psychological operation. I want you to feel a certain way. Watch this little PSYOP here. This is just a fun one. This has nothing to do with anything, but it's an example of how bullshit our media has been for a very long time. This looks like 90s television from what I can tell. We're all seeing that in the new media too. We're seeing it in the Ben Shapiro's. We're seeing it in The View. We're seeing it in the Bill O'Reillys. We're seeing it in New Nation. We're seeing it on podcasts and so on and so forth. We're seeing it over on X. We're seeing it on True Social. I'm just going to repeat what I want you to believe. It looks like this.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
Well, a child's happiness is priceless, right? Especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday. A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on their birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially when it comes to their birthday.
Absolutely.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
Well, a child's happiness is priceless.
When you say it with a very confident tone and you are wearing a suit, people will believe you. If you say bullshit,
Happiness is priceless,
it's
especially on a
priceless.
birthday.
Priceless, she said.
Happiness is priceless.
Let me just tell you with my hands.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
Child's
Right?
happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
A child's happiness is priceless, especially on a birthday.
Look at those.
You like that?
You like those balloons? Isn't that great? You could just read the script. Do you know that most news and most of those monologues that come out in the front, they're written by people that are not the person that's reading it, and then they're going to give you a delivery. They say the thing. If you take them off script, they oftentimes fall apart, which is where we're getting, and we're starting to expose some of this. It's the upside of the podcast environment. It's the upside of some of this kind of work. You might have an opportunity to expose these people. I'm going to give you an example of someone who does the Donald Trump thing, which is doing the hands, and he does it. He has the same kind of hand motions. Now imagine if the Donald Trump hands were done by like a flamboyant, effeminate man who may or may not be gay. What if you did that? Then you might get Gavin Newsom, who, when he's on message, will tell you that he feels strongly about the way that this is working in his head, but also in your heart, right? He's a crazy person. Watch these hands. He's being asked about trans surgeries on kids and gives no answer. It's the nicest thing about being in this media space where you actually have people that maybe are not accountable. For everyone who wants to call like Sean Ryan a CIA shill, like just give him a break. He interviewed Gavin Newsom, who's terrible, who's absolutely terrible. Having lived there when he was the mayor of San Francisco, and some of the awful policies, the fact that he's a governor is like horrific. That's why California's going down the toilet. Watch this guy try to spin, knowing that he's talking to someone that doesn't agree with him, and make sense out of nothing by saying nothing. He's also not learned the first rule of holes in this case. He's not going to put down the shovel. This is basically a transgender question version of the Trump Epstein thing. Epic fail. You can have it from either side. Let's call out nonsense where we see nonsense. Enjoy this only because it's so strange and awkward.
What about for your values? I mean, is 8 years old too young?
Yeah, I mean, look, I now that I have a 9-year-old, just became 9. Come on, man. I get it. So those are legit. You know, it's interesting, just the issue of age. I'm as someone that's been so focused on equality broadly, LGBT rights, particularly gay marriage. Mm-hmm. The trans issue for me is also novel. It's over the last few years. I'm trying to understand as much as anyone else. Whole pronoun thing, trying to understand all of that. Well, that was like the hell. I mean, all that stuff. I get it.
What did he just say? I think he said that the passage of time is significant because time, as it passes, significantly impacts the way that we perceive the passage of time. That was a Kamala Harris. That was it was nonsense, total nonsense. And by the way, this and this and this, like all of it is craziness. The sad thing is that we're seeing the exact same sort of just absolute epic failure. It's not good. When you screw it up, you go forward and you own it. And this is what owning it looks like. It looks just like this. KFC, for those of you who are just listening and not watching, KFC ran an ad when they ran out of chicken, and they're a chicken company. So having no chicken when you're a chicken company is the biggest failure you can have. You sell a product that you don't have anymore. And so their letters are K and F and C, and they organized them on their own bucket in a graphic that said FCK, which is very, very clever. And they wrote one message and then a paragraph underneath it. But the headline is, "We're sorry. The Trump administration is going to need to do something similar. Put down the shovel, own that you lied to people, what if that's what happened, or give people the truth. You don't have any other choice. You can't message your way out of this." And it reminds me that having a bunch of media people, they should actually know better. Hegseth, media person, right? Bongino, Patel, media people. They've got a lot of like Foxy News type people, Fox News, mainstream things. The difference between being in government and doing media and being in media and doing media, in media, you're selling the birthday story and you're just reading from a script. And there's no one back there to fact check you because it's a story that you came up with. Now, you could be wrong. Maybe that's not interesting. But there's not like, I don't know, documents and an entire department of people that you're running cover for. Doing PR is different than doing just plain media and selling a story. And right now you got people that are trying to do media kind of spin when they really need actual PR. By the way, I've seen this done. I made a recommendation early on, right when Kash Patel was in, to his publicist, whose name is Erica Knight. Erica, by the way, is behind a lot of the spin stuff that you're seeing. And she doesn't know anything about the FBI, which is really scary. And she's messaging all this craziness and giving like a media consulting how it's going to play out. She's a very pretty lady. She's a pretty, I think, single mom living in Florida, working on a government contract that she shouldn't have, doing the thing that she's doing right now. And when I said, how do you solve the Epstein situation? What you need to do is you need to sequester a bunch of FBI agents with the data, let them run a logical investigation where you're not going to deal with any Washington pressure. So put them out in Pocatello, Idaho. There's FBI's different facilities. Put them down at Huntsville. Doesn't matter. Move them out of the way. Give some AUSAs that are willing to prosecute if there's something, special counsel type status or just special investigation task force. Put them all out there. Leave them alone. Write off all of the normal federal government garbage where they would have to have virtual academies and ongoing training and compliance regulations. Leave all that crap away. Let them focus in on one thing. Every day you go in and do your job. And when they get started and start doing that, then you message, look, folks, we take this seriously. We didn't give this the right credit that we were supposed to. And so here's what we're going to do. We're going to do it right. And we've started that. They don't do that. And you're not going to see Kash Patel do anything other than what Kash Patel has been doing, which is messaging. Because that's what she's recommended. And he's also super happy with where he is. But Patel, the more I look into it and the more I read about it, the more that you go out there and look into the dark corners, he's got some real problems. I put it out yesterday. Apparently, it looks like he's trying to buy a new jet that's way more expensive than the current jet, which is already way more expensive than he should be flying in as the FBI director, which is not a critical position. If the FBI director doesn't show up for work, the deputy director does something. If the deputy doesn't show up for work, the associate deputy director does something. And if that doesn't happen, all of your now assistant directors, I think they've changed the org chart, but all those people know how to run all their own divisions. And at the end of the day, as an FBI agent, whatever the director said had nothing to do with what cases I was running. It didn't stop me or start me. If the director died, if all of the Hoover building got vaporized in an alien attack, it wouldn't have stopped the work that I was doing where I was doing it. It's completely nonsense. Unless you think that I'm being unfair to Kash Patel, this is a story that I helped with previously. I've covered this extensively. Chris Wray also was on a jet, and I had massive problems with that. And I had the whistleblower disclosures that went to Congress, including Josh Hawley, letting them know this is unacceptable. Here's one of the last kind of weird things, because I haven't said it on the podcast here before, but we've made some allusions to it. A guy who owns a private jet, who I've sat at dinner with, along with Kash Patel, and talked about private jets, including the misuse of the FBI's jet that was being done by Chris Wray at the time, is a guy named Michael Muldoon. He's the CEO of BQ Resorts. It's a timeshare company. He's a GOP mega donor. He writes six-figure checks to GOP causes and GOP candidates. And for years, several years in fact, he shared the same address on all of his donations, the political contributions, and I verified this with my own eyes on the FEC records. He has the same address listed that Kash Patel lived at for the last couple of years, and apparently Kash is flying on his jet out to Vegas to go live there and do his work as FBI director out of that. That's freaking crazy. All of that stuff is nutty. There are some real problems with this guy, and he's not going to rock the boat because he wants to have the job he has, and it didn't matter about doing the right thing. So I am more and more soured on the fact that this person is compromised. And it doesn't have to be some sneaky thing about Israeli intelligence. It can simply be he always wanted to be a private jet guy, like the clip we've played you before. If you want to see it, it's on my social media. Was it a joke? Yes. Do people tell the truth sometimes when they're telling a joke? Absolutely. They flip and do. So there you have it. All right. That's what we've got for today's program. I hope that made you think. I hope it makes you a little bit concerned. And I hope you understand that there's no reason to move on. Again, just because the left says something, just because the right says something, it doesn't mean that we are in agreement with them. We want the same outcome, but for very different motivations. And the motivation is key. It's the way that you prosecute the mens rea, if you will. The thing of the mind that tells us why we back this thing. It's not because we want to see Donald Trump unsuccessful. In fact, quite the opposite. We like him to do the damn thing that we said he was going to do, that he said he was going to do. You don't get to just call it the Jeffrey Epstein hoax and walk away. I won't take that. All right, I got something funny and stupid. Maybe the reason why we're all able to be conned so easily with these narratives is because English is a ridiculous language. It's difficult, especially if you're a foreigner. These are some of these like English lessons that I find every once in a while. I find them really fun. And they remind us that communication, it's not intuitive, even though our kids figure it out. When you have kids learning language and they use the wrong word, you realize like how dumb our language is. And maybe that's why we're so easily fooled. So here's a little palate cleanse for that. And we're going to get out of here with this as your sort of send off into your Wednesday.
So if we have more than one turtle, all we're going to do is add an S. And now we have turtles. That's right. Very good. Now, if we have more than one goose, it'd be gooses. No, it's geese. You don't see how it's because it's more than one goose. Oh, yeah, okay. Here, let me give you one more try here. Let's do this right here really quick. Let's do this right here. What word is that? Moose? Moose. Yes, very good. So more than one moose would be meese? No. I mean, mooses? Nope. Moosies? It'd be moose. You don't see how... If we have one moose, it would be moose. But if we have multiple moose, it would be moose. Okay.
Yeah. So our language is not easy either. Goose, geese, moose, meese, mooses, turtles. You guys heard it. All right. I hope you have a great Wednesday. I hope that you go out there and think critically, not just about why our English language is screwed up, but why these people want to gaslight you. And what are they trying to move you towards? They're trying to move you towards something. They need to put down the shovel. They need to own this. They need to eat the whole darn thing right in front of everybody. They can do it. Transparency is key. It's not just things we like. It's your duty if you want to be an honest operator. God bless you. Look forward to seeing you guys again tomorrow. Hope you have a fantastic day out there.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram @Kyle Seraphin.